they don't own their content. They're creating them for a platform that may or may not be there tomorrow or next week. And they're also spending a lot of time learning the tools and tricks and how to use the right hashtags, how to work within this platform without getting banned by the algorithm.
My name is Emi Choi, and I am a doctoral student in Cornell University's Department of Communication.
I am Brooke Erin Duffy. I am an associate professor at Cornell University, and I have appointments in both the communication department as well as feminist, gender, and sexuality studies.
So together we focused on social media content creators, and we decided for this to zero in on Instagram creators.
There is a tendency in popular culture to dismiss influencers as either narcissistic or having these ultra glamorous dream jobs. And much of my research has drawn attention to the various forms of labor, much of it unpaid, that structures the activities of the Instagram community.
Service really proved to be a helpful framework for us because it helped us think about content creation and influence as co-constructions. So in other words, it's not just the creator performing a labor when they build or when they maintain their accounts. They are also doing this with the understanding that others, again, whether that's their audiences, the people who are also building platforms around them, or even brands that exist on the platform, what all of these entities may do to influence their content and shape how it looks. So for instance, while audience members might help a creator hone their voice and their visual presentation skills, they may also, start to prefer content that isn't necessarily the creator's top choice. Plus, audience engagement is the way to grow, as we've learned over the years in studying these platforms, but it's really, really time consuming.
The accountability or the service to advertisers is by hyping their branded goods and services to potential audiences. They're expected to promote goods in this ever-changing regulatory system where brands expect them to communicate authentic brand messages, but at the same time, this sort of defies a lot of the standards for advertising disclosure. And so this service they perform to advertising is very much like a traditional media role. But what's different is the sort of lack of communication and the ever-evolving guidelines about how they are expected to communicate their branded promotional messages in a way that is fair and transparent. And finally, the service they perform to communities is, in a lot of ways, sharing information, sharing knowledge, despite the fact that these same communities also are very oversaturated and essentially are a source of competition for them.
Instagram is just rife with algorithmic mysteries. So none of us know very much about how they work, but we try our darndest to figure it out. So creators really lean on each other for the folk theories they come up with, for collective wisdom, and also for these collaborative efforts to make their content more visible. As we've learned over the years, none of this makes for guaranteed success. So much of it is undercut by a platform's ability to really just up and change at a moment's notice. The pressures are totally not unique to Instagram. While we did focus on that here, I think more and more we're seeing studies. We ourselves are even starting to do studies that take this cross-platform approach, and I do think that that's really important. It's almost necessary at this point if you're going to be a content creator to, have your hands in multiple spaces, just for that peace of mind and security that if it's not working out in one place, perhaps it'll work out in another place.
What happens is on each different platform, they need to think about, okay, well, here's my audience on TikTok, which is different from my audience on Instagram, which is different from my audience on YouTube, which is different from my advertising sponsors. And add to that the fact that these platforms in some ways are copying off each other. What used to be, in the case of Instagram, primarily a visual platform now has the stories feature. And so this compels creators to not just keep up, but think about, okay, well, now I need to have, content and text in visual and in stories format and push it out to all the various different platforms. So again, we're just seeing kind of an intensification and exacerbation of labor.
One thing that I've noticed over the years is that a lot of, especially modeling agencies, this is where I've specifically seen it, they're adding on an influencer category. They can bring on people who already have huge followings. And of course, that's not to say that they're completely separate from the modeling side, because I think there's also now a lot of pressure on, we'll say, like more traditional sources of talent also have a social media presence. We also have agencies that are starting from the ground up and they didn't exist before and now they do, and it's specifically for youth interests and youth tastes that they're looking at courting, a young class of consumers who are just learning to spend. Along with this, I think we'll continue to see advertising in the form of products and services that are specific to the creators. Instead of, Charlie D'Amelio just repping Dunkin' Donuts, she actually has a drink at Dunkin' Donuts that's named after her. So I think we'll continue to see that where, you don't just have a creator who's doing an endorsement, you have a creator who is having this very intimate partnership with a brand.
The nature and extent of self-branding that creators and influencers experience on a daily basis is only going to intensify, and it's something that people in various fields are going to be expected to excel at. And so elsewhere I've kind of talked about the fact that academics, which seem very far removed from influencers, are counseled to engage in the same sort of self-branding tactics, and journalists are expected to self-brand. And so, even though in the popular imagination, influencers are a career that seem far removed from a lot of other contemporary careers, I think there are striking similarities and parallels in various industrial climates.
Brooke and I, along with Annika Pinch and Shruti Sanan, two of our co-authors, we have a paper coming out on the many ways that creators experience precarity across platforms. So what we learned was that algorithms are really just one piece of the puzzle. We consider how markets, how platform evolutions and developments and other factors are also contributing to the uncertainties of creator culture.
The second area of research continues my ongoing interest and concern with expressions of antagonism directed at influencers, and especially women and other marginalized communities.
And then finally, about a year or two ago, we interviewed people who, whether presently or in the past, had repped retail brands, mobile apps, and other companies that you see all over college campuses. We look at what it's like to earn money or products for initiating branded conversations with your friends, with your classmates. Labor is really a fascinating space, especially because universities themselves are even hiring students to rep them on social media. And while this other group doesn't exactly have a commercial bent to it like the other ones, we've also seen a lot of COVID safety ambassadors on campuses. So again, another utilization of this type of labor.